It's now becoming abundantly clear that companies like Anthropic and Google are not only investing on smarter models, but also on improving their own skills. And the reason behind it is that this is the place where there is the highest ROI for anyone selling AI services or any small to medium business. And let me show you an update that came out literally the other day, where we have that Anthropic improved the skill creator, which is basically nothing more than the ability of Claude Code, or in general any Claude model, to create skills whenever we ask so. So whatever I'm gonna walk you through today is basically in this documentation. I will leave it in the link down below for any of you that wants to read it. However, I just made it a bit more visually clear and also easier to understand for anyone who's non-technical. So let me start describing what a skill is. A skill is actually an SOP, which for those of you who don't know what an SOP is a standard operating procedure. So nothing more than a series of instructions that a company has that details how a workflow should be performed, right? And what are the various steps. So you can think about it as a recipe, right? So Claude is our chef. You give it a recipe and it cooks any food that you want. Provided that you give this recipe, Claude is able to cook anything. And that's how a skill works. Now, why is this important? Well, because inside this, it's very clear that we have two types of skills. The first one is capacity uplifts. It's a series of skills that helps Claude when the model either doesn't know how to do a task or cannot do that consistently. And a quick example is a website, right? Like whenever we ask Claude, hey, please create a website, we don't really get a nice clean output, but we just get something random, something AI fluffy, right? We have to give it some instructions on how to create a proper website, which color to use, and so on. Otherwise, it doesn't really work so far. So that is an uplift skill. So basically an enhancement of a one-off task. Now, what does encoded preferences mean? Basically here, it means that these skills document workflow where Claude can already do each piece, but the skill sequence them according to your team processes, right? So an example that I really like here is the newsletter example. So think about it like this. Imagine that you ask Claude, hey, please create a newsletter. Like realistically speaking, Claude can do all of the pieces, right? But here we are steering more because we are deciding which are the right input that Claude should go and look for. So an example of this is, let's imagine that I want to create a newsletter, but I want the following things. So first of all, I want to have some information that are related to my competitor A, which maybe is running another newsletter. So I want to scrape that newsletter to figure out why is it so successful. Then maybe here I have three websites that are giving me the cutting edge technologies and my newsletter is on AI topics and I want to scrape them. And maybe here I have also some blogs that I want to like take into account, right? So maybe I don't know, 4 blogs. But not only that, I'm also interested in creating a newsletter that will attract people because it's talking about the latest trends. So maybe on my 4th point, I want to look at, I don't know, 20 Twitter account or X account that are posting about AI, and also I want to do analysis on what are the trending topics in AI, right? So basically this means that the AI is able to do each step. I'm just telling the AI, go in this direction with this sequence. And after in each step, you should do this and this. So I am curating the input. And then I get exactly the newsletter I want, maybe with the right format, maybe with the right buttons, maybe with the right text structure, and so on, right? But now what is the difference and how is this connected to the great upgrade that Claude did to its own skills? Well, because as you can see right here, we're not only talking about a distinction that is non-relevant between the two skills, so just one is this and one is that, but they also have some implication because capability uplifts are skills that may become less necessary as models improve, while encoded preferences are skills that are more durable, right? And they become as valuable as the fidelity to your workflow. What does it mean in simple terms? Let's make an example. So first of all, a capacity uplift, as we discussed, is the ability to make a website, right? So let's imagine that we have Opus 4.6 that's actually with the skill creating a phenomenal website. So here we just made a super web designer, right? Now, what Anthropic is telling us is that there is the chance that if they release Opus 5, maybe in the future, we, if not only don't need the skill, but if we use it, we are actually the decreasing the output quality of Opus. So what does it mean in practice? In practice, it means that there is the chance that future models are just gonna be better off without us saying anything, because maybe they have enough feedback that they are able to actually replicate whatever it is that they need at the first shot. Now, why encoded preferences will gain value? If the model here improves, then the skill deteriorates the output, right? But now if we go back to our example, if the model improves, actually here, everything improves, right? Because then the analysis that we do here on the various competitors is better. The way we're able to scrape Twitter is better. And also the output quality of whatever we write in the newsletter is better. So this is to say, the difference between these two is massive, because one, which is a single one-off improvement, will become less relevant and will become obsolete. But here, we're talking about the future of skills. And with this distinction, now we can talk about what changed today, because Skill Creator basically today improved. So for those of you who don't know where Skill Creator is, you can go in this GitHub repo right here. So it's this one, and you can go into skills and skills creator, and then we're gonna pick the skill.md. And if you can see here, it basically tells us what this does, right? So create new skills, modify and improve existing skills, and measure also skill performance. Then you can create skill from scratch, update or optimize, run evals, and this is what we're gonna be talking about, by the way, also today, right? Run evals, benchmark skill performance, and optimize from the skill description. Another thing we're going to be touching today. So what does this mean for us? That instead of having to read a ton of document and understand the best practices, we could simply copy this into our Claude, and this would not only get in for us the best practices to do that, but would also include all of these things that we're going to discuss now. So the ability of Skill Creator to continuously improve the skills by itself, right? So going back to our Canva, what are the things that this introduced? First of all, we said that we have the possibility of doing evals, right? Run evals. What does it mean? It means that the agent will evaluate the quality of a skill based on regression and outgrowth. So let me give you an example of what an eval is with this picture, which is in the Anthropic documentation, and then I will tell you what these two are. So what they did is improving an uplift skill, which is what we were discussing before, a one-off, which is the ability of extracting information in a PDF, right? As you can see here, if you look carefully, you have that like this email is not in the right place. You have X's here, but however, these are completely empty. And here you don't have them aligned properly and etc. While after the fix, as you can see right here, everything is correct, right? So email is there. We have that all of the tests here are passing and so on. So you can see that what we were discussing before about obsolescence is true, right? And now the question is, okay, what is this eval part in terms of regression and outgrow? So let's make the example that you have your opus, so your model, then you have a skill, right? So you're writing something in terms of skill. Sorry, I will just do this. And then you have your output. I will call it out for simplicity. What this is saying is regression means that the agent will be able to tell you, hey, I looked at the output at the model, and what I can tell you is that you are not getting the maximum output that you can get because you have chances to improve the skill, because the skill with the new model is not working anymore. So this is something that the model will be able to do autonomously, right? And this is what we call regression. On the other hand, when we talk about outgrow, we talk about something totally different. And so the ability of the model to say, hey, I looked at the output and I looked at your model, and my reco is don't put any intermediate layer here because I can sort out all of the tasks alone. And this is a huge difference because now we can do both things autonomously. Now, the second thing that we introduced is the benchmark. And the benchmark is again another thing that will go hand in hand with the competitor agent, which help us quantify what we were discussing before, right? So here we are still evaluating the quality of a skill, but we are doing it in a very, very nice way. So the competitor agent runs the so-called A/B testing, right? So compares skill enabled versus no skill and helps you with this simple workflow to create a report. And the benchmark benchmark also does that, and we can like prompt something like this, and you will see that you get a thing. And basically what it does is quantifying the comparison that the other agent did, right? So you will be able to see with skills and without skills, what are the big changes, you know, and how are these impacting your output. So you see here, test did not pass, test pass, pass, also here, and then here, of course, we have other two failures. And so here you get sort of a small report, right? So that's super important. Now, the fourth part, which is the interesting one, is trigger tuning. And what does it mean? It means that after looking at many ways in which people would trigger skills, they realized that there were two things: false triggers and missed fires. So false triggers means basically that I did not want to trigger a skill and it got triggered, right? Or I wanted to trigger a specific skill, maybe, I don't know, LinkedIn post, but it triggered the YouTube post. Missed fires means that I wanted to trigger a skill, but nothing was triggered. Okay, so two different ways of handling this. And you can see here, it's again in the documentation, what is the impact. Now, how are they doing this? The agent can now test a skill, see which prompt you use to call it, and then it can edit the skill description. Now, there is a lot here, so let me break it down for you. Let's imagine that I have a LinkedIn post. I can say, hey, write me a LinkedIn post, or hey, write me a post for LinkedIn. So these are the variation that you can use to call that, and then you upgrade the skills description. And why is this important? So to understand this, let me take my social media manager project and let me show you a skill. So you will see that a skill specifically right here, let me see if I can zoom in somehow, maybe doing this. Yes, perfect. You will see that a skill right here has a little part which is before everything, and then the rest of the skill description, right? So in this little part, there is a thing called description, and we're talking about updating this part. And why is this important? So, and to understand this, let me go here. So imagine that we are saying we have our answer or our prompt, and then we have the answer of the LLM. And our ask is, hey, how are you? Then of course, the LLM would simply answer, hey, good, what about you, right? And here we would have simply, hey, how are you? Okay. So now if I say, hey, please write me a LinkedIn post, right? About, I don't know, life. What I'm gonna get as an answer is, and of course, my LinkedIn post, but a lot of stuff happens before, specifically if the project is big. And what does happen? It happens that the LLM gets the request, and then what does it do? And then it goes into every single skill that I have, and it takes all of this part and starts loading it, right? And loads skill number 1. And for example, loads skill number 2, and so on and so forth. Eventually, it will find a skill which is called LinkedIn post, right? And once it finds the skill, then what's going to happen is that it will realize, there we go. How did it realize that this is the skill that we want? Because we're looking at the description, and then what's gonna do is it's gonna just go down here and load everything else, the remaining part, in our prompt. So this is extremely important because you can see that this little part right here allows to be super efficient, right? Because instead of loading, I don't know, 10,000 words, we just load 600, which is, I don't know, a 10x reduction or whatever, depending on how big the project is, right? So that is extremely important because by doing this, we become more and more efficient. And why is that? Well, you need to think about where Anthropic is going and what this update means for us. This update means, first of all, started because whenever they launched it, the agent skill in October, right? What they saw is that the people that are actually using this are the SMEs or subject matter expert, not the engineers. So they needed to find a way to mitigate this difference between technical needs and needs for matter experts. And so what they did is that basically with this update, what they did is that they enabled anyone to have a sort of software developer that is specified or qualified for skill creation, right? So now anyone can create high quality skills and they can also track them themselves. Why is this relevant? Because for the future, and this is Anthropic last words in the doc, right? We are are moving into a future where we will use simply natural language description, and the skill will know exactly what to do, and it will be enough for the model to figure out the rest. What does it mean? It means that all of these complications that we have now for skill creation and all of the best practices and etc., the more we go on with the models, the least they will be required, because the technical gap is decreasing. So this is to say the technical gap is shrinking more and more, and who will win in the future is just the person who knows how to position this as value for a business, specifically in the AI space. So if you're a 9-to-5er that maybe knows how to build these things and you want to monetize them, I left the first link down below, which is the link to the one-on-one mentorship program where I will help you outscale your AI agency in the next 90 days. And with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you will love this video right here.